we're hearing Quinnen Williams. And so we're chasing Quinnen, and the next thing you know, it's Sauce Gardner.
And just an absolute blockbuster of a deal.
He said something and he did it, y'all. He said it and he did it.
What are you trying to say that's going to do for the Dallas Cowboys this year?
It wound up being both of them. Quinnen Williams headed to the Dallas Cowboys.
That's all we need to know.
I thought the NFL trade deadline was going to be boring. I thought I was going to have to drag out that Logan Wilson trade for 7.5 minutes to make an episode, but thank you. Thank you, Football Jesus, for the Sauce Gardner trade. Thank you, Football Moses, for the Quinnen Williams trade. And thank you, dear Lord Satan, for not helping the Chiefs, and I know you wanted to. Unfortunately for A.D. Mitchell, his goal line fumble may go down as one of the most costly fumbles in NFL history. Well, at least since the Ernest Bynert fumble, anyway.
That's all we need to know.
That one gaffe is sending Mitchell to the Jets. The Raiders granted Jakobi Meyers his wishes and traded him out of Vegas. Rashid Shaheed is leaving New Orleans, and my Denver Broncos... Fuck, they didn't do anything? Nothing, Denver? All those rumors and you did nothing? Smart. We're 7-2. Don't mess with the great team. Today, I'm gonna break down the real winners and losers from the NFL trade deadline, and all I'm gonna say is it's hard to believe that on the day Dick Cheney passed away, 2 massive jets actually left New York. That's Good Sports. Subscribe. Oh, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks and my code TGS. When you sign up, it's the single biggest way to support this channel. Now, we get big bonuses here at That's Good Sports for every 200 signups. We've got 60 new signups in November already. If I get 6,000 by the Super Bowl, I'm going to go dine in hell at that stupid Mahomes and Kelsey restaurant in Kansas City for your pleasure. I hit on 2 of my Prize Picks plays this week. Thank you, Jokic and Jacoby Brissett. I also had one hit with DeAndre Swift in the lineup. Now, he did not play because of an injury, but Prize Picks adjusted that one for me, which is cool because some places don't do that. So, just use my code TGS when you sign up, make a $5 deposit, and you're going to get $50 in lineups. Follow me on the app as well so you can see my plays and keep the unique names coming. Perna for President, Good Poops, Bover Spins, I Love to Pern Man, and Davis Mills Neck. Yes. Code TGS. The least sexy trade? The Bears calling up the Browns, probably asking about Myles Garrett and walking away with Joe Tryon Shoyinka. The Browns love trading away guys named Joe. Joel Bitonio, you're safe because we know the Browns will always hold on to an L. Jakobi Meyers gets his wish and is no longer a Las Vegas Raider. That makes Jakobi Meyers a big winner today. Congrats. You get to join the team that just beat you, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags get the 28-year-old wide receiver 1 year removed from his only 1,000-yard season as a pro, and the Raiders get a 4th and 6th round pick to play around with in 2026. Now, the Jags had 13 picks before this trade, so they can afford to part with a couple of them and try to change their fortunes in the second half of this season. That's a really odd thing to say about a team that's 5-3, but they came into the season feeling excellent about the wide receiver position and have gotten just 6 touchdowns combined out of that group. I think this is a sneaky win for the Jags, though. Jakobi Meyers is a very solid receiver who catches the ball. I shouldn't have to say that about a receiver, but when mentioning the Jaguars, it is important. And as my friend Garrett pointed out, he has just 2 drops in his last 174 targets. That could be a huge help to the Jags receiving core that has 174 drops on their last 2 targets. Now, Jacksonville has surrendered the most expected points this season because of dropped passes, and with Travis Hunter on the short-term IR, this can bridge the gap for Liam Cohen. As for the Raiders, they get rid of the only smart player they had. The one guy who wanted to leave. Ha-ha! Modest winners, the Eagles. Now, it seems like cheating to have the trade deadline The same week, Howie Roseman's coming off a bye. The Philadelphia Eagles are back to their old aggressive selves at the deadline. They took a flyer on corner Jair Alexander, who was a complete non-factor for the Ravens this season. He was only active for 2 games and a healthy scratch for another 5 while the defense was completely reeling. And Howie Roseman got him to Philly with... oh, Jesus, yep, it's a 6th and 7th round pick swap.
All right, 6-7.
It's a low-risk deal that could potentially get them some depth in the secondary heading into the second half of the season. If that does not work out, they also nabbed a younger corner from the Jets, Michael Carter, for a 7th-round swap plus wide receiver John Mechie. The Jets are now entirely Michael Carterless after having one at running back and one at corner, but Philly gains a defensive back who's not afraid to mix it up in the run game. Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have been fantastic as expected, but Adoree Jackson and Keely Ringo have struggled. So clearly, the Eagles wanted some other options to work with. Don Fangio, it's time to turn those
Meatball
into all pros. But the big swing for the Eagles comes on the edge. They sent the Miami Dolphins a 3rd-round pick for former first-rounder Jalen Phillips, who's battled plenty of injuries in his career but has come back to play all 9 games for Miami and collect 3 sacks and 7 QB hits for the 24th-ranked defense in the league. Not a ton of production on a very underwhelming defense, but he has the 3rd highest pressure rate in the NFL since Week 5, so I'm thinking he's going to get to the quarterback with all those massive space eaters on the Eagles' interior D-line. He's also reuniting with his old defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, who coached him to 6.5 sacks in just 8 games back in 2023. Losing birds, the Ravens, at least compared to the Eagles. In addition to sending away Jair, they traded with the Titans for defensive end Draymond Jones. Not a bad addition, but just so less titillating than everything else going on. Were you too scared to go after Quinnen Williams, Baltimore? Were you too scared? Anyway, since Draymond Jones is a former Bronco, I hope he works out for you. And winning, getting your homework in just in time, the Los Angeles Chargers, who have traded for guard/tackle Trevor Penning, the former first-rounder from the Saints. That makes a lot of sense considering the injury to Joe Alt and the older injury to Rashawn Slater. They needed help on the line, and the Chargers got it. You know what? Winning trade for you, Chargers! But Penning, of course, has not been particularly good at any point in his career with the Saints. Sometimes, though, a change of scenery and an upgrade at the quarterback position can make a massive difference for a tackle. Losers, the Bengals, who could have gotten a haul for Trey Hendrickson. They're going to lose Trey Hendrickson after the season regardless, and they're still grasping onto this year for absolutely no reason at all. And I would have thought, after losing the way they did on Sunday, they would have seen the writing on the wall and, tried to build for their future. And sure, you could argue the same for the Raiders with Max Crosby, right? But that situation's different. First of all, Max Crosby really wants to be a Raider, wants to finish out his career there. I think that's important. And while I would have loved to see Crosby out of the AFC West, I think the Raiders are smart to hold on to him for now. Losers, the Dallas Cowboys.
That's all we need to know.
Who traded away Micah Parsons in August. I just had to remind you. Why'd they do that? So they could add a 29-year-old linebacker and Logan Wilson week 10 for a 7th-round pick to try and fix the 2nd worst defense in the NFL. Take it from former Cowboy Troy Aikman, who posited an accurate reaction to the Logan Wilson trade before knowing who the Cowboys had even traded for.
Yeah, he may want to cancel that trade. I don't think one player from what I've seen tonight is going to make a difference for this group.
That's an evergreen statement out of Troy if I've ever heard one. You can just play that on a loop for most of the trade since the Herschel Walker one for Jerry Jones. Hands down, the funniest part of this trade was Jerry telling Stephen A. Smith that they had made a trade, but not saying for who it was.
We're going to bring someone else in, just so you know. And I'm going to wait and let you read about that.
Okay.
When we send the papers in tomorrow.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, It was for an off-ball linebacker who wasn't getting snaps for maybe the only defense worse than the Cowboys. Later that night, future president Stephen A. Smith was watching that game with Jerry in the booth, and it got so bad he just said, "I'm out of here," after the Jake Ferguson fumble. Now the Cowboys are not a Logan Wilson away from fixing their defense. And no, they're not a Logan Wilson and a Quinnen Williams away from fixing that defense. Are they? They had their difference maker. They blew it. And no amount of Band-Aids is going to save a defense that's giving up just shy of 31 points per game.
That's all we need to know.
They should be on the other end of these trades trying to acquire picks, but I'm not sure their de facto GM has the patience for a rebuild at this stage in his life. And of course, Jerry was not lying because he was far from being done, and clearly those Michael Parsons picks were burning a hole in Jerry's pocket because he flipped a 2026 second rounder and a 2027 first rounder and defensive tackle Maisie Smith for Jets defensive tackle Quinnen Williams. I like that Jerry saw a man who was confident enough to thank himself for saying bless you.
Listen, thank you that I got here. So
The first man in the NFL to publicly thank himself since John Elway.
I'd like to start out this press conference with a thank you to John Fox.
And Jerry said, "I need this guy on my team. I need this guy." Winners don't wait for someone else to thank them. And I'm sure Jerry Jones is thanking himself over and over and over again for what he's done today, looking in that mirror and yelling, "I'm Jerry Jones! Give me some trades, motherfuckers! I'm a billionaire Jerry Jones. I don't just like oil, I like making all the goddamn trades. Cause I am God. I'm the God of Texas, motherfuckers.
That's all we need to know.
Alright, I got that out of my system. I just don't get it. Parsons is 2 years younger than Williams, plays a more premium position, and you threw away half the season by having neither guy on your roster. And now you're 3-5-1, and you're still worse than you were before the Parsons trade. I will give Jerry this. They get 3 years of a team-controlled contract for one of the best run stuffers in Quinnen Williams, and it doesn't seem like Maisie Smith was particularly well-liked by Cowboys fans. To be clear, I love Quinnen Williams, the player. I just don't think he can save Dallas this season or even next season. Deron Bland is turning into a liability in their secondary, and Sauce Gardner in Dallas would have actually made a little more sense in my opinion. How dare you, Jerry, not give me Bland Sauce in your secondary? Here's my prediction, guys. Quinnen, Williams, and eventually DeMarvion Overshown will make the Cowboys defense a little bit better. Maybe 15th best. If you watched their offense the last 2 weeks, though, that means nothing. Denver and Arizona obliterated them. Dallas is always one step behind. Winners, the Seahawks, who just dominated Washington through the air, who have the most productive receiver in the league with Jackson Smith and Jigba and an emerging star in Torrey Horton. They said, fuck it, let's get a speed demon on the outside. Rashid Shaheed is now reunited with his former New Orleans offensive coordinator from a season ago, Clint Kubiak, who was calling plays while Shaheed was averaging 17.5 yards per reception prior to his injury. By the way, they're also adding a punt returner who led the league in yards per punt return before getting injured in 2024 and has taken 2 kicks back to the house since 2023. This feels like when the Buccaneers drafted Emeka Egbuka. It didn't feel like a need for the team, but the Seahawks had a need for Shaheed. And we have seen that he's still got that speed. When he burned the Giants for 87 yards in the Saints' only victory thus far in 2025. And now Shaheed's got one of the best deep passers in the NFL throwing him the rock and a really good chance to make the playoffs for the first time in his 4-year career. Winners, the Colts, who traded not 1, but 2 first-round draft picks for Jets corner Sauce Gardner. This has to feel awesome for Sauce, I didn't say awesome sauce, I didn't. who's never sniffed the playoffs in New York and now gets to join a team that's tied for the best record in the NFL. The cost of living difference going from New York to Indianapolis alone is enough to put some crushed red pepper in your ragu, huh, guys?
Ragu spaghetti sauce, 100% natural, ripe tomatoes.
As this guy pointed out on Twitter, Sauce is officially the first millionaire to leave Zoran Mamdani's New York. That tweet is funny enough that we can ignore that the Jets play in New Jersey. The good news is Sauce knew Daniel Jones was good before anyone else.
What was your opinion or takeaway on Daniel Jones?
He's a good quarterback.
A sincere and ringing endorsement if I've ever heard one. Now the Colts were a good defense, 7th in points allowed prior to this trade. That being said, if you paid attention here on Power Rankings, they had a pretty obvious deficiency at the outside corner position, and we saw that show up when they allowed 391 passing yards against the Chargers, 312 against the Cardinals, and 360 against the Rams. They still have games against the Chiefs and Seahawks this regular season, and they're obviously going to feel a little more secure on defense after adding the former Defensive Rookie of the Year and a 2-time All-Pro at corner. The AFC is as wide open as it's ever been. The Colts are vying for a first-round bye, and they've gone all in with what they gave up. I don't really have a problem with the Colts moving these picks because, at least this year, their first rounder should be mid-20s at the lowest. And the 2026 class isn't considered especially deep at the position at this point. Sauce only has 3 career picks, but if you're a true graph head like myself, you'll see that he's still locking down his side of the field in this graph. Sauce hasn't allowed more than 2 receptions to a single receiver this season. He has forced a tight window throw on 52% of his targets, the highest rate of any player targeted at least 20 times in coverage per Next Gen Stats. And I bet they will let him hold. He's going to get to hold again now that he's on a good team.
I think I get called for more stuff. It's just based off of us just not winning.
Another winner, Colts new owner Carly Irsay for giving Chris Ballard his testicles back so he can make a splash trade like this. Now, I'm not even saying Jim Irsay took away his testicles, but they have definitely been missing for big midseason moves. Maybe Phillip Rivers stole them when he left Indy just to have a spare backup. A.D. Mitchell is going to the Jets as part of this trade, which makes A.D. Mitchell the biggest loser of the trade deadline. Mitchell was the 52nd overall pick in 2024, but has only amassed 32 receptions for 464 yards and no touchdowns so far in a season and a half. And God, he was so close to that first touchdown. Welcome back to the Jets, Malachi Corley. He's actually caused more defensive touchdowns than he scored in the NFL going back to last season. The more I think about it, this add-in might have 99% spite on the part of Indy. This tweet from August 7th is so hilarious and so ironic in hindsight. Be careful what you wish for, Nash Talks, Texas. Short-term losers, long-term hope, the Jets. Trading away your number 1 corner and a 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle means you are as bad as advertised. Probably even worse. Yes, the Jets just netted a metric fuck ton of picks, but we won't know if this works, if any of this is going to work for a long time. If, and this is a big if the Jets can turn those 5 first-round picks in 2026 and 2027 into a franchise QB and multiple cornerstone players, this will be an eventual win for them. Keep in mind, they have used top picks on Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson at quarterback, a genuine bust, and a franchise QB that they were just too dumb to develop. That feels like eons ago. There's a new regime there, new people evaluating talent, so we can't put their past mistakes on what their future could be, except for the one common denominator, owner Woody Johnson, who just can't seem to get out of his own way when running this team. And I'm not even sold that Aaron Glenn is the guy yet, either. But that's just because his team has played like ass.
That's all we need to know.
That said, having 5 first-round draft picks in the next couple drafts is a good thing. As long as the Cowboys are bad in 2027, then New York got great capital. Those Colts first-rounders are coming in at the very end of the first, so keep that in mind. Winner, Darren Muji, the rookie general manager for the New York Jets. who had the balls to make all these deals and actually go through with a fire sale and tear down a team desperately in need of a complete reset. Yes, he bled high-end talent, but the 2025 Jets defense was not the same one that Aaron Rodgers signed up to play for 3 seasons ago. They are allowing 27 points per game, basically tied with the Giants at 5th worst. And that was with Sauce and Quinnen on the field. A true tank or rebuild is a hard thing to do as a first-time GM, but I think he learned from George Payton and Sean Payton that you need big brass balls to make real changes in this league, and he's proved he's got them. Muji turned 2 All-Pro defenders into 3 first-round picks in the span of about 90 minutes, which no one really saw coming. Muji is essentially playing Madden franchise mode when you take one of the worst teams in the NFL and acquire as many first-rounders as you can get from the CPU. I'm sure Woody Johnson approved this method. The question becomes, do any of those picks turn into Arch Manning in 2027? Is Arch Manning even good enough for one of those picks? I don't know. And maybe they all turn into Fernando Mendoza 6 months from now. I don't know, but I cannot wait to find out.
That's all we need to know.
Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. If you haven't checked out the real winners and losers from NFL Week 6, go ahead. It's up here on YouTube now. Appreciate all of you watching and rocking with this channel. I always forget how crazy this week is.